A very good evening to you. I'm Lisa Lord, and in our headlines, the Attorney General responds to queries about the appointment of a second Deputy Commissioner of Police. The National Assistance Board staff given the all-clear back on the job. Scores of imported cows to give local milk production a major boost. And in sports, CWI's Director of Cricket says safety is the #1 priority for the tour to England.
NewsNight Headlines was brought to you compliments Omega XL.
Broadcasting from our studios in the Pine St. Michael, this is CBC Newsnight, starting now.
In our top story, Attorney General Dale Marshall has responded to questions raised about the appointment of veteran policeman Oral Williams to the post of Deputy Commissioner of Police. In a statement, Mr. Marshall made it clear the decision to appoint Mr. Williams followed robust and extensive consideration of the impact of crime on the safety of the country and citizens, even before the Barbados Labour Party was elected to government. He pointed out that the BLP remains convinced that efforts to reduce crime will not have the desired effect if the modernization of the force's management is not an integral part of the exercise.
The Attorney General says that as a critical part of that process, it was determined that the best interest of the country would be served by having a Deputy Commissioner of Police with direct responsibility for administration and human resources matters, and another deputy with direct responsibility for operations. He says the second post of Deputy Commissioner of Police was created on May 9th last year, and on that date, Mr. Williams was appointed to act in the position. On March 15th this year, the Protective Services Commission confirmed Mr. Williams in the post. Mr. Williams is responsible for administration and human resources matters in the force, and his colleague, Deputy Commissioner Erwin Boyce, is responsible for operations. The statement went on to add that the Police Act only speaks to a single Deputy Commissioner of Police, and it is therefore to be regretted that the required amendment did not take place in advance of the confirmation. Mr. Marshall says none of this takes away from the necessity for the post as government works to improve the management of the force, or that Mr. Williams is qualified for and deserving of the position. He says this is in essence just one of a number of steps that will be taken to bring the force in line with modern police management structures. The Attorney General also gives Barbadians the assurance that once the strictures of COVID-19 allow government the space to resume sittings of Parliament, the necessary amendment will be made to the Police Act to give full effect to this decision.
Administrative staff of the National Assistance Board who were given a clean bill of health returned to work today. Now, NAB headquarters had been closed for the past 2 weeks after 7 staff members tested positive for COVID-19. All 7 remain on sick leave, but 6 have been released from isolation after 2 consecutive negative tests for the virus. They are continuing their recovery at home. The staff members who returned to work today are those who tested negative for the coronavirus and were placed in quarantine at local hotels along with members of their households. Minister of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs Cynthia Ford was on hand to welcome them. She notes that the experience has been a traumatic one for staff, and she warned the public against stigmatizing the workers because of what they endured.
I've been out there in the trenches and into the households and communities across the length and breadth of Barbados to be able to bring service, care, joy, love, understanding, and everything else that goes with good living, particularly for our elderly folk across Barbados. And a lot of Barbadians are not aware that there are over 1,100 clients who wait on them day and night, according to the agency, hand and foot, to be able to survive.
Minister Ford also encouraged Barbadians not to let their guard down as she revealed that 6 former neighbors had died of COVID-19 in the United States.
We grow together, we work together, we worship together. And so the reality is, I want to advise all Barbadians, do not let your guard down. whether it be on the street, in the buses, or whatever form of transport you're using, whether you're going around the workplace, take nothing for granted.
Nurses have come in for high praise locally and across the globe on International Nurses Day. Minister of Health and Wellness, Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Bostic, says the role of nurses has magnified times fold amid the global coronavirus pandemic. He says these frontline workers turn up for their jobs intent on providing the best available care. Minister Bostic, in his message celebrating International Nurses Day, says it's imperative nurses are provided with all the personal protective equipment they need to carry out their duties. He saluted them, noting their invaluable role cannot be overstated. Now, just yesterday, COVID-19 czar Richard Carter warned that Barbadians were frequently breaching government's emergency directive, especially as it pertains to the use of public transportation. In tonight's edition of Coping with COVID-19, we take a closer look at how public transport should be used in these times.
People are moving around more after the cautious and phased reopening, which came with phase 2 of government's new COVID-19 directive. So that naturally means that more people will need to get from point A to point B, bringing public transportation under the microscope. Now, what do we know about taking public transportation under the new directive? All public service vehicles and motor omnibuses are limited to carrying 60% of their seating capacity. While for transport board buses, this works out to a maximum of 21 passengers at any given time with no one standing. Now, for transport in general, no two passengers shall be allowed to sit side by side, and drivers, conductors, and passengers are required to wear face masks. All motor omnibuses and public service vehicles are required to be sanitized before and after boarding passengers at the Oistins, Princess Alice, Fairchild Street, Constitution Road, and Speightstown terminals. Now, COVID-19 czar Richard Carter has pointed out that there have been some serious breaches of these directives, and people have been taking to social media to complain about what they describe as full buses. When contacted specifically about the issues within transport, the czar advised anyone who witnesses any breaches on PSVs to get off of the vehicle and report it to the Transport Authority. Please remember, a person who contravenes government's directive without reasonable explanation is guilty of an offense and is liable on summary conviction to a fine of $50,000 or to imprisonment for a term of 1 year or to both. These are some tips to help you cope with COVID-19.
Well, this update just in. A 31-year-old Barbadian man has been diagnosed as the country's latest positive COVID-19 case. The Ministry of Health and Wellness has started the process of contact tracing related to this case, as the patient has no recent travel history, nor can he be linked to any known cases. This case was the only positive recorded from among the 177 results returned by the Best Dos Santos Public Health Lab yesterday. Now, with this new case, the national total is now 85, 44 females and 41 males, and the number in isolation has increased to 21. The number of recoveries remains at 57, with 7 deaths recorded. There have been 3,185 tests completed so far. Barbados is set to see a significant increase in milk production over the coming months. The opportunity comes with the importation of 159 cows through the Barbados Agricultural Society with the assistance of the Ministry of Agriculture. Lorna Jones tells us more.
The first set of 84 cows arrived at the Grantley Adams International Airport in the morning. On hand were officials from the Ministry of Agriculture and the Barbados Agricultural Society, including Chief Executive Officer James Paul. He says the initiative is expected to bring significant returns to the industry soon.
There are still some quarantines that have to be undergone by the animals themselves, and certainly it is an effort that we are hoping will pay dividends within a very short time, as the cows that are coming in here right now, these are already bred. Some are 5 months along, so within and more. So within a matter of 2 to 3 months, they should be dropping their calves, and of course, in that period too, we should also be getting milk as a result.
Agriculture Minister Indar Ware notes while yields have been low, the ministry is hoping for a 20% or more increase in production. He says he has been in dialogue with dairy farmers about their concerns, especially in these times of drought.
We have to make sure that we help the dairy farmers because the production of milk is highly dependent on water supply as well, and therefore we need to work with them to help them mitigate these drought conditions.
Minister Ware says with the arrival of these cows and the projected increase in milk production, the industry now has the impetus to expand. He's called for more Barbadians to get involved and explore new products.
The options available in dairy farming, we can now look to dairy farming where we can increase the production of yogurts and cheeses. And equally, we can also look to dairy farming where we can produce more flavored milk for consumption in Barbados.
The initiative, which was financed through a loan from RBC Bank and facilitated by the Central Bank, carries a $1.275 million price tag. The initial down payment was contributed by the Pine Hill Dairy, whose plant manager Kenroy Smith applauded the initiative.
It will allow us, Pine Hill Dairy, to increase our production output, which in recent times has been stressed. So this is a very good day for Barbados, for Pine Hill. So thank you all, and let's get producing, right?
An additional 75 cows are expected to arrive during the night. The cows will be distributed among 4 dairy farmers. Lorna Jones, CBC News.
Minister of the Creative Economy, Culture and Sports, John King, is optimistic the Barbados National Register of Historical Places will not only help shape national identity, but will allow Barbadians to know more about themselves. He says the register will touch everyone as it opens a space for community and government involvement. Mr. King was a guest on CBC TV8's program, Morning Barbados.
I mean, think about it. A lot of the oral history and things like that are lost in Barbados. So a lot of stories, a lot of good, positive things that would have been accomplished by people of bygone eras are lost, you know. This register gives us a chance, take in oral history, gives us a chance to look at places and sites that we value. And if you go into any village, I'm sure that there are persons who can tell you of a place where maybe people used to gather to have service of songs, or this is the place where X person did something great in the community. Those are the type of things that you want be able to put onto that register.
Senior Cultural Officer Sharon Johnson says the list will not only include built heritage, but extend to spaces or sites.
A building might have been removed from a site. Say we had a national hero and the home was demolished or something like that, but the space is still there. Story is still there to tell the community. So it is not only on, and I must stress, this is not only on a physical building, but spaces. Could be the patch, the garden patch, the plantation, the banana patch where the children would run and play during the summer vacations, but it holds significance to the community. It could be, say, the first head teacher in a village. The house might not have any artistic or architectural significance, but to the community it is important.
Well, the move to online learning has highlighted a digital divide, with students not having ready access to computers and the internet. A university lecturer believes education cannot truly be accessible to all unless such inequalities are addressed. Sharika Griffith reports.
Lack of access to digital devices, the absence of technical know-how, and in some cases, homes without electricity are among the major constraints facing some students at this time. Lecturer of Educational Leadership at the University of the West Indies, Dr. Ian Marshall, believes these underlying inequities must first be addressed to ensure all students operate on a level playing field.
What people need to understand is that fundamentally, our education is grounded in elitism. And when you move online, all you are going to do is to bring in sharp relief the inequities. So if you're talking about democratizing education, then you need to address those underlying inequities first before you can get into a classroom and speak to the issue of democratizing education.
Dr. Marshall was a guest on CBC TV8's The People's Business, which examined the topic, education in the COVID-19 environment. Class 4 teacher at St. Gabriel's School, Joylyn Innes, believes greater investment is needed in public schools to ensure teachers have the necessary technological tools.
They have to be able to have classrooms that have the smart televisions in it, children that have access to the iPads and the iPhones, and they use these on a daily basis. Unless we have those, you could train the teachers until the cows come home. It will make no sense if your classrooms are not equipped and ready. And then sometimes we ask, why is it the private schools seem to be ahead? It's not that they're ahead, it's that they're equipped.
However, Dr. Marshall suggests there are fundamental differences between public and private schools. He says, unlike public schools, private institutions have the power of refusal and can choose which students to accept. They can also fire teachers who are not performing. In spite of this, he says exam results over a 15-year period show some public schools continue to excel.
What we recognize is that the students in the public schools that were behaving just like private schools were doing comparably, they were performing comparably. So therefore, there's no real, the misconception is that private schools do ever so well, but I want you to understand that there are public schools that do very well also. And if you consider that they have all these other disadvantages, it was stated to me that they are doing remarkably better because they are doing it against the odds.
Statistics from the Ministry of Education indicate there were 68 primary and 22 secondary public schools between 2015 and 2016. During that period, there were 26 primary institutions and 9 secondary institutions offering private tuition. Sharika Griffith, CBC News.
Edison Teachers Training College has embraced the new normal brought on by COVID-19. Principal Dr. Patricia Saul says the institution realized that due to the virus, it was unable to deliver its courses face-to-face. It then moved to transition all of its courses online. And Dr. Saul was a guest on Morning Barbados.
Luckily for us, 3 of our programs were already utilizing some blended modalities. Additionally, last year, we had undertaken training for 23 of our staff members in online teaching through BIMAC. As a matter of fact, some members of staff had already started to transition their courses and rewrite their courses to make them compatible with the online platform. However, with the onset of COVID, we had to fast-track our plans. And our technology team, led by Dr. Ramona Archer-Bradshaw, organized more extensive training for the entire staff.
4 pounds of marijuana was discovered hidden inside disinfecting wipes, canisters, and other cleaning products destined for Barbados in Ohio. The contraband was concealed in a shipment from Canada on May 6 that was headed to a doctor here in Barbados. Officers in Ohio became suspicious of the shipment after a drug-detecting dog alerted them to the cleaning products and they saw anomalies in x-rays of the goods. Officials say an increasing number of people are purchasing cleaning products online because of the COVID-19 outbreak, and smugglers are using the pandemic to conceal nefarious activities. Well, still to come, Guyana's tourism industry suffering billions of dollars in losses. But before we get there, here is that tip from Cooperators General Insurance.
This tip of the day is brought to you by Cooperators General Insurance Company Limited. Insurance the way you want it to be.
A parent should help a child problem solve and learn new skills by using a system of accountability and consequences for their actions. This parenting tip is brought to you in association with Parados, Parent Education for Development in Barbados.
Regional news now. Guyana's tourism industry has suffered an estimated $32 billion loss in revenue so far as a result of the coronavirus. Now, efforts to continue to mitigate the impact are ongoing. We hear more in this Newsroom Guyana report.
Since the coronavirus disease COVID-19 outbreak in Guyana, 30% of employees have lost their jobs and an additional 36% have been furloughed or placed on unpaid leave in the tourism industry. Director for the Guyana Tourism Authority, Carla James, told the newsroom during a recent interview that this is according to a survey that was conducted by the Tourism Authority. The tourism industry is one of the most affected during this time, with over $30 billion in losses so far. The industry injected $62.6 billion into the economy in 2019, and it was expected to see further growth this year.
I think the minimum loss that we've had is $32.8 billion in export earnings based on the average expenditure per the international travel, or based on what I would have shared earlier.
The director explained that when the crisis is over, the industry has to be part of any national recovery strategy if it is to bounce back.
Current drought conditions could prompt St. Lucia to declare a water-related state of emergency. Minister of Agriculture Ezekiel Joseph disclosed the cabinet is mulling over the decision. We hear more in this HTS report.
Officials fear that the water situation on the island has moved from bad to worst amid the drought season, so much so that the Cabinet of Ministers is reportedly considering a proposal for the declaration of a state of emergency for water on island. The water crisis comes amid one of the worst pandemics in recent history. On Monday, Agriculture Minister Ezekiel Joseph stated that the water levels at the John Compton Dam now resemble what would normally obtain in the July-August months, but we are still in the month of May. He is worried about what this could mean for farmers and their livelihoods.
We are realizing the level at the John Compton Dam is much lower earlier than these years. In fact, what they are saying that the previous years where we had experienced that type of situation, it is all the way down in June, July. We're in April, May, and that's when we're experiencing it. So they are now calling the authorities to really consider a state of emergency.